Thank you from my heart. The suspect will think hard before setting up an older person for profit again. I can tell Ms. Vogler, if I could speak to her today, that she's done more for me during my career by writing this letter than I ever did for her, for sure. My career began, it seems like it was just yesterday, May 23rd, 1994, as a aspiring deputy sheriff. When I entered college, I wanted to be a football coach. Along the way, I changed my mind and thought that law enforcement was something that I might be good at. Turns out it was one of the best decisions I ever made, and I owe that to my greatest leader in life, which is my dad, Leonard Herrera, who was a corporal, a supervisor with the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. I've actually served in every single bureau of the Washoe County Sheriff's Office.
For the last 3.5 years, there was things we wanted to do that we've accomplished, regionalizing all of our teams for narcotics, human sex trafficking, crime suppression, and that was Greg's forte. We were taking his knowledge and experience so that as we've replaced people in key positions, if they didn't have that experience, Greg was able to utilize his experience and knowledge and help mold and mentor him.
He cares about his people. You see that just talking to him.
It was one of our longest standing SWAT call-outs, and the team was in a very compromised situation, and Greg wasted no time putting himself out there, putting himself in front of danger to help save his brothers that were forward in the line, me being one of them.
I cherished my time on SWAT as well. SWAT was something that I had to work very hard at to be considered a good teammate. But inevitably, I would always forget a piece of gear or two.
Phil always carried like an extra bag of equipment just for Greg.
Yeah, Greg, when it came to SWAT gear, made me be more prepared because I had to carry 2 pairs of shoes, usually magazines, flashlights, and all that. I'm pretty sure he did more entries in my boots than he ever did in his own. So it just became a standard. When Greg arrived on scene for a SWAT call, everybody would just gather up and give him gear to use.
I know that Phil come in behind me on these stories and probably overblow them a little bit, so I just want that known because he definitely helped me out, but that might have been a little overblown.
On stakeouts, we've been on a stakeout on a burglary stakeout down south. Greg being Greg all night long. You know what, I'm not gonna talk about that one. Let's make him get nervous because he knew which one I was gonna say.
Most people probably know this about Greg, but he has just a little bit touch of claustrophobia. And when I say a little bit, I mean psychotic level of claustrophobia. And so on this one particular day near the end of our trip, we did a bunch of interviews, came back to the hotel, and we're walking up the elevators. And of course he was gonna take the stairs. And I said, Greg, look around, there's no one around. And so he confidently gets on the elevator, and he and I are standing there in this wide open elevator by ourselves, waiting for what seemed like forever for those doors to close. And seemingly out of nowhere, this huge group of tourists appear out of thin air and flood into the elevator. And so Greg and I are pushed to the back of the elevator, and I look over at Greg to see how he's doing, and he has turned white as a ghost, and this look of horror on his face that I will never forget in my life.
What's up, Sarge? This is a pro in the tower right here.
Greg ran that thing masterfully. He'd be up there in the tower clicking buttons, carrying on. Although he did do this standard joke. He would push all the buttons down when you relieve him and say, hey, if you want ice cream, go ahead and push the button. So for the next hour and a half, people would be pushing the buttons on and off.
I was in detention for a couple years before I ventured out to patrol. But eventually, I tested for detectives, and that was my true passion, where I spent almost the next decade of my career. One case that sticks out in my mind was in the early 2000s, when a young lady, she answered a ad in the Big Nickel. It was a newspaper at the time, and it was to babysit. Well, little did she know the person on the other side of that ad was one of the most heinous criminals I've ever dealt with. She believed that she was on her way to babysit for this individual, and she ended up in the hills of Washoe Valley, where she was brutally raped. And I responded to Carson Valley Hospital, and when I first got there, the mom, who was a great lady, was upset that she saw a male detective there.
I was adamant when I called the police that I wanted a woman, and they sent him. I hadn't fit. He says, Miss Edel, he says, a man did this injustice to your daughter. He goes, let a man fix it.
Once they start on a case, good detectives don't stop. They just keep going until it's solved.
He was like a dog with a bone. He was going to solve this case. He was going to find that guy.
He's now in prison for the rest of his life.
Being invested in being in detectives takes more of your life, I think, than some of the other things. It took its toll on Greg, and it took its toll on some people around him, but Greg was a solid family guy.
You know, I've been able to raise two beautiful kids that are going to be successful leaders growing up. Very proud of them. It's important to make sure that your home life is squared away, so it allows you to focus and provide extreme focus and critical thinking while you're taking care of the situation on hand, whatever that may be, whether it's a complex detective call-out call or it's a SWAT mission. If things aren't squared away at home, then it makes it more daunting or sometimes nearly impossible. And I want to thank my wife because during all the call-outs, all the bells that I answered, whether it be SWAT or detectives, that's something I had to worry about because I knew that things were good at home, and that's all because of her. She was my crutch throughout all this. As I sit here and try to think about the type of impact or legacy that I'm going to leave, this agency and this community has had a bigger impact on me. I'm going to tell you something, and I mean this wholeheartedly, is I'm going to walk out this door this place isn't going to miss a beat, and that's because of the great people that are here. One of the things that I'm most proud of is just those relationships I built along the way are very special to me, and I think probably the most important thing that I'll take with me.
Happy retirement! Go back!
It has been a tremendous journey and a complete honor and privilege to serve this great community of Washoe County. Wouldn't change it for anything.